3, 2, 1, and go. You are live.
Fashionably late. Sorry, we had audio problems. Welcome, folks, to another Saturday night. Another Sudbury Saturday night. If you're Canadian, you know exactly what I just said. Tonight's topic is, as written, someone tell me?
Backsaws and more.
Backsaws and more. Luther is floating around the Pacific Ocean somewhere, hopefully under power. He and his wife are on a 1-month cruise, starting in Hawaii, going to all the islands, and then going down to see Tony in Aussie land. Now, where's he going after that? Don't know. Probably moseying back. Anyway, so we're here to entertain your questions, do some demonstrations if needed, tell you about the Purple Heart Project and how we're funding it. We're introducing a change tonight that we hope will result in better and more reliable support for what we do. Because it's a huge need, in case you don't know. I'll tell you more about it as the night progresses. How many people do we have on, Fred? Pardon?
We need to tell them now.
No.
Yes.
No.
We can tell them all.
We'll wait.
No, we can tell them all.
How many people do we have on, Frick?
Start now.
118.
118. When we have 250, then I'll talk.
We have people
Give me a
that are
question.
trying to donate now.
Hold your donation. We have a new idea. Give me a question to warm things up, please, Frick.
Don Bass in New York
Hey, Don.
says, what do you think of hybrid filing versus specific crosscut or rip file for backsaws?
Hybrid filing?
Hybrid.
You mean yeah. Other words, a combination saw, similar to. So I answer it this way: on my table saw, I don't use combination blades. I have crosscut blades, designated 80 tooth crosscut blades, and 24. How many teeth on the rip blade, Jake? 24 tooth rip blades, because the crosscut blade does a better job cross-cutting than a combination, and the rip blade does a better job ripping than the combination. So if you can afford it, and if it's a budget issue, I understand, then get the designated blades. You will appreciate it. So when it comes to a hand saw, same thing. I have a crosscut saw for cross-cutting, I've got a rip saw for ripping, and the rip saw is, you wouldn't want to have to cross-cut. You wouldn't want to have to rip with a crosscut saw. It's painfully slow. And a combination saw would be a little bit, or hybrid would be a little bit faster, but nothing can compete with the rip saw for going through parallel cuts on wood. So I'm not a fan of combination. I'm not a fan of anything that takes a particular tool and modifies it to broaden its use. I want accuracy, and I want designated tool. My opinion. Sure, you ask somebody else, you get a different opinion. Next, Rick.
Emerson Assis from Brazil.
Hey, Emerson from Brazil.
He says, is the backsaw a must-have saw?
Well, you got to define must-have. If you plan to do any amount of hand tool woodworking, cutting dovetails, for instance, then yes, you need to have a backsaw. Now, a dovetail saw is classed as a backsaw. I'll show you my recommendation. A dovetail saw, a crosscut saw, and a tenon saw. So functions, well, this is specifically for cutting dovetails. That's all I use it for. Slight variation there would be, occasionally I'll use it on a small tenon. Crosscut saw, joinery crosscut saw, that makes beautiful cuts across the grain, such that you can cut your shoulder and join to it, meaning you can make that cut with that saw and don't have to do anything else to it. Same with the dovetail saw. You cut the side of your dovetail, you do not have to go in with the chisel to fix it. And then a medium tenon is very similar to the dovetail saw, with the exception being that I assume you can see. Can they see? You've got greater depth of cut. You've got a thicker blade, 25 thou versus 20. You got a heavier tooth count, 12 TPI versus 15, and the cutting face of the tooth is backed off about 4 or 5 degrees, just to make it a little easier. Most people don't have a ton of experience with this, and it's the type of thing they may only use once every 2 or 3, 4 months. So it makes it a little bit easier to use. Those are the 3 that I would consider to be essentials if you're doing hand tool and power tool, or if you're doing only hand tool. If you want to add to that, go a larger tenon saw, but this will probably do 95% of the tenon work that you're going to do in building house furniture. And then this is a bench crosscut, something you would use in a miter box. So this would prevent you from having to, well, I just said all hand tool. If you're using a hybrid shop, instead of going over to the chop saw every time you got to make a cut. And I don't join from the saw either. I always shoot it. So if I need something, I just need to make this 1/4 of an inch shorter than it is. Instead of going over to the chop saw, I can cut it right here and then go right to the shooting board and finish the job. So those are the 3 essentials. Next, Frick, please.
Quick shout out.
Quick shout out to
2 people.
2 people.
Tony Payne.
Tony.
An Australian.
Tony getting ready to accept Luther.
No, different Tony.
Oh, Tony
Tony
Payne.
the vet.
What?
Tony the vet.
Oh, Tony the vet. What's the other Tony's name?
Shoot.
Tony.
Dang it.
Our Tony?
Ah,
Brahador?
no. Tony from Australia.
Oh.
He's helping
Martin,
get
Martin.
Tony Martin. Tony Martin.
Tony Martin.
That would be Martin, would it not, Moose? Tony Martin, the musician. Help me get. Hey, help me. Is he on tonight?
I don't know. Tony Payne is.
Hey, Tony Payne. So who's Luther going to see?
Tony Martin.
Tony Martin.
Luther wasn't here when Tony was here.
Tony's a good guy. Big Aussie. Big. I remember the story he told. Always remember that.
And Artist Benson's on.
Oh, Super Dave's mom.
Tony said he's welcome to drop in.
Tony Payne said he's welcome to drop in. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he is. He's a good guy. Next, Rick.
Next one comes from Michael Dodo in the chat.
Hey, Michael.
How do you determine the setting on the saw set anvil? Which number for your .002 set?
Okay, I'm sorry. You have to say that again, please.
How do you determine the setting on the saw set anvil? Which number for your...
Oh. So you're referring to saw set. There isn't one that's going to have that little set. So I'll show you what somebody modified for me. Jake, do we know who did that?
No.
How it would be... You didn't just send it and not tell us. So here's a... that's not a very good example. The question is, how do you... Here's a new one. I think this is still made. Jake, they may need to be closer. So on this saw set, this is the tool that you would use to push the teeth. And be that. So here's my handsaw. Each one of these teeth is bent out from the saw plate. This one right here is bent to my right. The next one is bent to my left, right, left, right, left. So that when you make your cut, the saw doesn't bind. I'll put it in here and show you what I mean. If we didn't have any set, you wouldn't get a 1/16 of an inch way in there and the saw would bind. But because the teeth stick out, the kerf is a little bit wider than the saw plate, the blade itself. And that allows it to go down there without jamming. Now this one only has 3/1000 of an inch. So that's a 3/4 the thickness of a piece of paper. That's how far it sticks out beyond the plate on both sides. What's nice about that is it helps to keep the saw going straight because it can't wobble side to side. Well, I don't know whether it's a new concept or what, but most of these, I haven't found one yet that has that fine of a setting. So this round piece we'll call the anvil, and if you look real closely, it is beveled. The bevel starts right about here. It's beveled from there out. And as it goes from here all the way around, the bevel gets, you can see right here the difference. There's where the bevel is the least, and there's where the bevel is the most. So you line that up according to the amount of set that you want. You loosen that, you rotate it.
We've never measured the minimal amount ever.
No, but I know it isn't, it's way more than I want. And then when you squeeze this, you'll notice that there's a plunger in there. And that plunger, the first thing it does is it pushes, I'm gonna do it up on this side. It pushes the blade against the flat part of the anvil. And then as you continue to push, you're gonna see a plunger. That dark metal plunger, that comes out. Now you would do it on this side. That comes out and it pushes against the tooth, and it'll push the tooth over toward the anvil, and that will give it a measured amount of set. But the problem is that none of these have a tooth-thou setting, which is what we use on our saws. So a chap, I don't know who he is, I wish I did so I could give him credit. What he did, he modified this by putting in this apparatus that will only allow you to go so far. So now when you're pushing, and that anvil, instead of the anvil, I'm sorry, what are we calling that? Instead of this pin being stopped by the anvil, it's being stopped down here. So that allows it to only push against the tooth a certain amount before it fetches up down here, which is a pretty good idea in terms of how to control the amount of set you end up with. Now that you understand all that, ask the question again, would you please, Frick, so I can make sure I...
How do you determine the setting on the saw set handle? Which number for your .002 set?
Yeah. So I did answer. There isn't one that has that little set. We're looking at making one. The other thing you do is to do what this chap did. It's pretty simple. Got a block of steel. He's got a bolt in there. The block of steel has been fastened onto the handle, and you can adjust the bolt. There's two nuts, so they lock against each other. You can adjust the hand. You can adjust it so that it'll only allow the handle to squeeze so much. But it's just going to be if you're going to do that, you're going to have to go in and modify it yourself and experiment. Now the other thing too is that let me put my better eyes on. That plunger is too big. Looks, I don't know if he's modified it or not, but I would go in and file that down on both sides because it's wide enough. Oh, you know what? It will. Wow, it's awful close. It's almost to the point where it touches two teeth, and you only want it to touch one. So I would take this apart. I would go in there and I'd file away the sides of that so that it came to a much smaller point where it actually contacts the tooth. That's going to be something you're going to have to work on your own until we can come up with some idea. But how often you're going to have to do that? Well, you probably can get away with sharpening your dovetail saw once every 3 years. And you can get about 3 sharpenings before you're going to have to go in and reset the teeth, so you got a bit of time. We'll solve that problem soon as we can. Next, Frick.
Daniel LC
Daniel, from
the chat.
In the chat.
Can you explain all the tools that you use to sharpen the saw's teeth?
Yeah, I can. First thing you have to do is you have to have a vise. I'll show you two of them. Jake, can you go find the antique vise?
Saw vise?
Saw vise, yeah. I think it's out there.
You just kicked it.
Well, stop kicking it. And where is my? I guess my shop-made one's out there too. Bring them both in if you would. So here's your files. Depending on the size of your teeth. These are critical. Thank you. You got a Sharpie? Oh, never mind, I got one this right here. Let me put some of these back.
Andy wants you to know his favorite assistant is watching.
Andy,
Your favorite assistant is watching.
my favorite assistant is watching. Who would that be? Kyle? Frick, are you watching videos instead of paying attention to what we're doing?
Yep.
Can somebody go get a popsicle stick for me? It's a stirring stick right there beside the coffee machine. There should be one there. You don't all have to run. True.
You're just getting up at the time you do that.
All right, so, wow, that's a lot of gear. A lot of gear. Remind me to tell you about the Vince Lombardi trophy before the night is over. So, first thing, you have to have a vise. You have to have something that's going to hold the teeth. So you can either go out and buy one of these. Thank you. And these are pretty common. I find them in garage sales a lot. Common because I think I paid $30 or $40 for that. So if they were rare, they'd cost a lot more. And the idea is you need to support the teeth really close to the blade. So if I'm sharpening this, I don't want the blade way up there like that. I want it held really close, at the most 1/8 of an inch sticking above. And that's going to support the teeth well, and it's not going to vibrate on you. Now, if you can't find one of these, you can make one. We did this on YouTube, Jake, or was it the online workshop? So this is, I got this idea from Tayfred. He wrote about it in his book. I've got it right here. I'll show it to you. So he wrote 3 different books in a series. And it was entitled Tayfred Teaches Woodworking. I'm sure you can still find it. I'm going to guess and say what's the date on it? 1979. So in there, he shows you. If I can find it real quick. I'll just tell you that it's in here because I don't see it. But he shows you how to make this. I modified mine a little bit. I'll show you. That's the book. Tayfred Teaches Woodworking, Book 1. One was on bending wood and one was on finishing, I think. So 2 pieces of plywood. I like Baltic birch. 4 pieces of hardwood and a piece of piano hinge. Now, I modified it so that I could do both I have 9 different saws, but of the backsaw type, I have 7. Yeah, and there's the dovetail saw and the crosscut are very common, same frame, and the joinery crosscut, pardon me, the bench crosscut and the medium tenon are the same frame. So I wanted to be able to put that in there, and without having to take the handle off, so that when that's why the recess is there. So when you clamp that in place, your teeth you can access the whole thing. This is shorter than the blade, so you've got to stop and move it. This way I can do the whole thing at once. And just so that you see what I mean, I can take my medium tenon and I can put in, the recess is a little bit lower. I can put that, wait a minute now. You know what, I just lied to you. This one handles the dovetail saw and the medium tenon. This one handles the bigger saw, the big tenon saw. That'll go right there like that. So let's put this in place. Put that down. Teeth are just sticking up. Squeeze that. These pieces of hardwood on the side, make sure that it's level. If you don't have the capacity to squeeze the whole thing and you have a Schoberg vise where you can only pinch half of it, then you just have to put a clamp over here to hold the rest of it. It's always easier if you go in and mark your teeth. So if you take a Sharpie and go in and paint those teeth before you start, then if in the process of doing it you have to stop, you can go back and find out where you actually stopped. In other words, if you double file on one tooth, you're going to get your tooth line out of sync. You want the appropriate file. So we source these. It's a long time. I think Luther found them. They're made by Grobet, and they are really good saw files. The ones that we found elsewhere, instead of having nice sharp corners to give you a nice deep pointed gullet, they end up giving you little waves because the profile of the file, instead of looking like this, equilateral triangle, it's got rounded corners. So these are good. 3 different sizes. One for doing the little teeth on my, I didn't even pull this one out. On my Len Robichaud saw, the little one. You can also do the small teeth on the starter teeth on your dovetail saw with it. And then you've got the one in the middle. I actually just grabbed the same too. Somewhere in here I have a third one. That's it. That should have been like that. So that would be reserved for the big hand saws. So I grab a saw like this. Now, I have a popsicle stick here, and the reason is you want to be able to hold your saw at that fixed angle. So if you take a popsicle stick and drill a hole in the middle, take your file, take a square. So my teeth on the dovetail saw, the cutting face is 0 degrees. So it's, if you were to put the square on there like that, that is parallel to the cutting face of each tooth. So what I would do is I would set my file in here, got to flip it around the other way. Set my file like this, hold it in place with that tooth, that angled proper. There. So now this is straight up and down. So when I'm filing, I can tell if I'm tipping. I can keep that level so that I can maintain that. Now, after a while when you do it, you just get it set. In fact, usually you can just go in there and set it by just putting the file down in the gullet. I keep my finger right here and I can go through that whole thing without having to worry about it. I don't change sides. I file all from the same side. So, quick recap. You're going to want a file. You're going to want a vise. You're going to want, if you're new, that. Get yourself a good Sharpie or something that you can paint your teeth, and you're good to go. And none of this stuff is terribly expensive, so all within a Christmas present range price. Is that? Next, Frick. Oh, actually, how many people do we have on?
277.
All right, let's introduce this then. So, I assume everybody on here already knows what we do, but for those who maybe are tuning in for the first time, if there are any, we started a program, I say we, Jake and I, back in 2016, as a result of being approached by email by Jesse Paratus, who was a combat wounded veteran from Southern California, looking for a dovetail saw that he couldn't afford. But he mentioned that ever since he got involved in hand tool woodworking, it was the first time he found any peace in the physical and the mental pain he suffers from. And that resonated with me because I had been teaching regular folk for a long time. And they would come to the class Monday morning, be stressed out from life, and by the time Friday night rolled around at midnight, I'd be kicking them out, telling them it's over, they have to go home, but they were just chill. And I thought this is something we should probably be doing for these guys. So we reached out and we did that. We taught our first class in November of 2016. Had no idea what to expect, didn't know it was going to be such a life-altering experience for us, but it was. So thanks to the help of Woodcraft and Luther and a lot of other folks that came our way, it turned into what's called the Purple Heart Project. So now, as it has matured to where it is recognized in both the United States and Canada as a legitimate nonprofit, a 501c3 in the United States, and a registered Canadian charitable organization in Canada. Luther is the, what's his title? Executive Director in the United States, and Ken Anthony is Executive Director of the Canadian branch. So we operate 6 classes a year. Because of where we live, we can't do this in the winter. So starting in April, we have a 6-day class every month, with the exception of October, with the exception of August. From April to October, we bring in each time 7 combat wounded veterans from all over the world. We've had them as far away. I've got, you don't see it, but there's 6, how many flags? 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, yes, 5 flags on the wall over there representing the 5 countries that we've had vets come from. Tony Payne, who's on tonight, is one of the 2 vets that we've had come from Australia. We've had them from Ireland. We've had 2 from Denmark, and the bulk are from the United States, and we maybe have 10% from Canada. We bring them in, we fly them in, we house them, we feed them. We send each vet home with somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000 worth of premium tools, what you see behind me. Everything they need to build a piece of furniture like it was 200 years ago. Thanks to Jack Lane and Jim Rossetti in Moncton and 300 or 400 volunteers, bench brigade volunteers all spread all around, I'm not sure how many countries, 6 or 7 countries. We build a workbench to our specs, and it is delivered to them, and almost always it's delivered by the builder. And that way the vet gets to go home and continue this. And the type of woodworking we teach can be done in your bedroom, spare bedroom. We have delivered to date, does anybody have an accurate figure? Or at least by the time of this last intake, our last class was in October, by the time it's taken care of, we will have delivered, I'm going to say 175 workbenches, might be higher than that. We've had over 200 combat wounded vets go through our program, probably closer to 220. And we have no plans on slowing down. Last year's total cost was $350,000 US.
Jack says with the last deliveries, it was 168 benches.
So is there more to go?
October classes, we will have, so that'll include them all.
168 with October class? Okay, I was a little high, projecting. So $350,000. Last year, thanks to my friend John in Florida and a whole bunch of other volunteers. I single out John because he saved the day. We only had enough money to do we only had enough money to finance through to the September class. We would have still done the October class, we just would have had to pay for it. But John stepped up and covered the entire cost of the October class. So that was our first year in 9 that we actually were able to raise sufficient funds to run the program. So what we'd like to do to make this so that we can plan a little more effectively, we've been doing this format of me standing here answering your questions for I don't know how many years, but we get on here and we get on bended knee and beg for donations. We're going to change that. What we're looking for now are for people who are willing to go on to the page. I'm going to have Ken explain it. Go on the page and register to be a monthly donor. That's something that we can then bank on, and we know, okay, we have X number of funds coming in, as opposed to worrying about who's going to be on any particular night. So the way we like to recognize and reward you for that. So for every 10 monthly donors we pick up each time, we will give away a really nice prize. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about a $300 prize. So that's pretty substantial. So how are we going to have them do that?
Monthly ones?
Yeah. Actually, Ken, come over here, would you? And just explain to them. Jake, do you have the mic?
Just right here.
It's on the table side.
I got it. Start off with a little song.
Yeah, so all you have to do is go on the HP website,
Which is?
which is thepurpleheartproject.org. Click on the donate button, it's right on the home page. And then when you click on the donate button, you'll see 2 little boxes over to your right on the top saying monthly or one time. And if you want to do monthly, obviously click the monthly button. Then you can scroll down and pick your amount, or you can add a custom amount, whatever you want that to be. So, and it's the same on the Canadian PHP website, so either one. And so just...
So you can pick it in either US dollars or Canadian dollars. So
Right.
make sure you do that if you're in Canada, so you don't get any surprises on the exchange rate.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it?
Yeah, easy.
How are we going to know they do it so we can have a tally at the end? Actually, you know what? We trust you. Just tell us if you do it, if you did it.
Yeah.
Tell us so we can have a tally.
I think Brent can give us a tally.
Yeah, Brent could
Brent,
tell.
is it Brent on tonight?
Yeah,
Yeah, he
he's
is.
on.
It'd be easier for him to tell us.
Yeah.
Brent, the slowest dovetailer in the world, but also
You're
one
not
of the
slowest
best.
counter.
What?
Make sure you're not the slowest counter.
Yeah, don't be clowned. Don't count slow, Brent. So Brent will let us know at the end of the night, and for every 10 donate monthly commitments we have, we will give away a nice prize. I think tonight we're going to give away a dovetail saw. We'll start there since they're talking about saws. And we could be enticed to go a lot further if the generosity is overflowing. Now, we've got, too bad we didn't highlight somebody. I should have thought of this. We've been a little bit preoccupied. I have a son, Bo, who's in the hospital. Had a really serious motorcycle accident 6 weeks ago tomorrow night. So he's still in intensive care, and it's this. He goes up, he gets 3 steps forward and then 2 back, and then 3 steps forward and 2 back. So last weekend was a real rough one. He had ended up with double pneumonia and 1 lung collapsed, and if you've been down that road, it's so he lays there in bed with no movement other than he can move his arms a little bit like that. So hopefully that's all going to come back, but he's in rough shape right at the moment. So we go in there every day, spend the evenings with him. So forgive me for not being a little better organized. Now let's go and do a couple of questions, and then we'll come back to that. I want to stress the advantage. If there's, how easily could we pick somebody out of the air, Frick, and have them go on and tell their story, a vet?
You mean get them on the show?
Yeah. You just do it through FaceTime, right?
Yeah, they can message me.
All right. So if you're a wounded vet out there that has been to our program, and you can put in 3 to 4 minutes, if you can tell your story on how coming here to this program and woodworking in particular has helped you deal with what you deal with on a daily basis, we'd love to hear it so we can just kind of emphasize this.
Oh, actually,
What?
I don't have the proper tools here this evening
You don't?
to bring anyone today. No.
How come? Can't we just aim the camera at the phone?
What do you need, Frank?
I know it's the adapter. We don't.
Can we not just aim the camera at the phone?
The problem is we don't have a free USB port anymore.
Oh.
Can we aim the camera at the phone?
Well, I suppose, yeah.
Yes, we can. There's always a way. It may not be Hollywood quality, but we'll still get them on there. So, if you're a combat wounded vet that's been to our program and you would like to give your testimony of what this has done for you to help us stress to the folks how important this is, that we continue it, please speak up. Let Frick know or Ken. And if there's any wounded vets on there that have been to our program, we'd love to acknowledge you and say hello. And we also have a big shout out to somebody that's been very generous recently. But before we do that, let's get a few more questions in. Frick, please.
Well, this would be a question for the and more part of the topic, and it's from someone named Bo, ironically. Bo Riddle in the chat says, can you tell me the best wood glue out there?
Yeah. Well, Jake, do you want to grab that 2-part? I think it's in that little cabinet right there underneath the red tool cabinet. So I'll tell you this, but I can't ever just give a short answer. So let me, and because I think this emphasizes it. So when I was a hungry furniture builder, I had built a piece of furniture, something called the weave. I've told this story lots of times, so I'll speed it up. And it's 3 pieces of wood, 1/4 inch thick, glued over a form so that it would maintain its shape. So it was a coffee table, and the base went like this, and then the top did the opposite. They were connected where they met, called the weave, because they were woven together. Anyway, it literally just got destroyed, sitting in the front showroom of a store, a gallery, where it was on the sun from the sunny side was shining in there all day, and it was in an area that heated up, and it just literally came apart. That was regular Type Bond glue. I contacted Franklin, it makes a Type Bond, and was told by them that at about 120 degrees Fahrenheit, that glue loses something like 80% of its strength. Well, 120 degrees Fahrenheit is not very hot. You can tolerate that. So I switched at that point, and something else happened. I had a piece of furniture, also something like that, in a friend's studio, photographer, and his hot water system broke, and the carpet got soaked, and it went up into the legs, and it came apart because there was no water resistance. So I use Type Bond 3. Type Bond 3 has all the qualities of regular wood glue, with the exception, or with the addition of the fact that it's waterproof. So to get everything you need and to have the waterproof factor added in, I thought was a good deal. I don't know about the heat part of it, but if I have to do anything that is going to be a bent lamination where there's stress or anything outdoors, I'll use a 2-part adhesive that is a plastic resin. Thank you. Now I'm going to warn you about this stuff. So it has an open time of about an hour. That means from the time you mix it up, you've got about an hour before it's no longer any good. So if you're doing something like we're just about to, we are just about to embark on a big laminated project. If you look over here, first, can you look over here? So this is a piece of 5/8 inch MDF banded with ash all the way around. and it's got to be veneered on both sides. And I just received the shipment of veneer. And then here's the desk top and the desk sides. That's 1.5 inch MDF, banded with ash all the way around. And that's got to be veneered on both sides. Well, there's no way that regular glue would give you enough open time to coat all that surface, get the veneer on, get it in position, get it in the press. So this is where I would use this glue. So it's a light brown colored powder. You can see it. It's just literally it's just a powder, and you mix it. I think it's 2 to 1, 2 parts powder, 1 part water. Yep, it is. But when you mix it, you always mix the powder into the water. You never mix the water into the powder, because if you do, it'll never mix. And a power egg beater, don't tell my wife I used hers, is the best way to do it, because it takes a lot of mixing. If you're trying to do it by hand, you'll be there forever. And you slowly add that powder into the water until it's completely mixed, and just keep doing it very slowly. It gets lumpy if you put in too fast, and it is a nightmare. It's terrible stuff in terms of getting ready to use, but it does give you lots of open time. I don't know what the curing is, but we'll leave it in the press. I'll tell you. By the way, so it's called Circa 1850. I'm sure there's more than one brand out there. Coverage, dry time. Becomes cold waterproof in 48 hours. Clamping. The mixture has a pot life of 4 hours at 20 degrees Celsius, 2 hours at 25 degrees Celsius. So it actually is more than an hour's open time. I can't see anywhere on here where it says clamping time. No, I don't see it. I don't think of it. I'll leave it in the clamp for a day just to make sure. So there's my 2 go-tos. Next, Frick. Jake, can you give me a question? Anybody to say hello to, Ken?
Don't forget we have to do the cheddar.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it at 8 o'clock, or on the hour.
I'm too nervous.
Alfred Borg in the chat.
Alfred, how are you?
He says, how many sharpenings can you get on your saws before resetting the set?
3, 4. You'll know. Yeah, in fact, that brings up an interesting topic, or something I think I should address. So each time you sharpen, it's gonna reduce the set a little bit. You just need clearance, right? You need the saw to be able to go down there without binding. So you can see the saw is just barely heavy enough to get down there. So that's a nice set. And you want your set to always be even. So after you've sharpened, you're going to make a test cut and make sure it's cutting nice and straight. If it's wandering to the left or to the right, then you've got a problem with your set. If it wanders to the right, you've got more set on the right side than you do on the left, and you've got to go in and correct it. Now you can correct it by going in with a stone, set it down on the edge like this, hold your thumb right here, and then drag it once, and come over and make the cut again. And what that's going to do is going to take the corners of those teeth that are sticking out on this side and just pull them in just a little bit. Some people do that with clamping it. I prefer to do it with the stone. I find that works a lot better. But just after each sharpening, just check it. And if it binds and you can't get comfortably down through there, then you know you need to adjust the set. But you should get you should get at least 3. It's almost as relaxing as planing a piece of wood. Next, Frick. I'm just watching the clock, so we'll in 10 minutes we'll stop and read that tribute.
This comes from Craig in the chat.
Hi, Craig.
He says, "Can you show us how to straighten the blade out for on a back? Can you show us how to straighten the blade for a backsaw? Can you tap the back brass to straighten the blade?"
Well, I don't do that anymore. What I do is real simple. Take a couple of blocks of wood. Has anybody volunteered to come on and speak about their PHP experience? Is John Hayes on there? John Wood.
I haven't seen anybody.
No? Boys, don't be shy. I need you. I'm calling you. So what I would do, if there was, you got to try to identify where the bow is. So if I'm sighting down my blade like this and I see a little bend, I try to get at the peak of the bend. And so if there was a bend, if it was going like that, right, if it was curving to the left, I'd find the peak of the bend and I would put that, flip it over like this actually. Ian does this now. I would support, round pieces aren't the greatest choice because they're going to move on you, but put that like so. Get a clamp, and if you're worried about marking the side of your saw, then you can go in and put something on there, and then you would just come in and put pressure and clamp that down. You have to clamp more. You're going to have to bend it more than what you would think because it'll spring back, and then come up and take a look. And you just keep doing that. And if you're nervous and don't do very much, try it, check it, try it, check it, try it, check it. And eventually you'll get to the point where you've removed all of that and it's nice and straight again. And it's pretty easy to tell. You just eyeball down there and you're looking for a nice straight line. That's good and straight. Straight as an arrow. A good arrow. I was just going to say something. What was I going to? Shoot. Fleeting thoughts. Next, Frick. Any vets to give a shout out to?
Yeah.
Who? They're all nervous now because I'm gonna call on them.
We have Andrew Whitaker,
Andrew.
Kyle
Kyle.
RL from
Parallel Kyle from Newfoundland.
and Brent Nelson, who's also
Brent.
on the board of directors.
Yep, recently added to the board of directors.
Phil Gustav.
Phil's on? Oh, Philip, would you do that? Philip Gustafson is a celebrity.
We've had 3 people volunteer.
Have we? Oh, wow.
Well, I've heard 2, unless you're calling on.
Philip Gustafson is right here. I gotta tell you a quick story about him. Came to the very first class we did. We had no idea what we were doing. And all I thought was, these guys aren't going to, I apologize. I didn't think they were going to be very good at doing this. So I was prepared for a long day of teaching dovetails. 15 minutes in, so the first task is they have to be able to take their saw, they laid out the dovetail, and they've got to be able to go in and make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I've got to be able to put a square on there, and all 6 of those cuts have to be square to within 1/8 of an inch over 6 inches. And it usually takes the average guy probably 12 tries. That means you do it, you screw up, you cut it off, and you start over again. 15 minutes in, Philip says, Rob, I got it. And I'm thinking, yeah, right. So I went down and looked at it and said, oh my goodness, he did. Now what am I going to do with him? Fortunately, he cut the wrong part off. So this is his first completed dovetail was right here, and it was darn near perfect, just fantastic. So I had him come out. He's got such a powerful story. I had him come up and be my assistant last year, Jake.
Yeah, he was in John News class.
Oh, was he? Yeah, this past summer. Philip. So if he wants to volunteer, who else is volunteering?
Tony Payne.
Oh, Tony is? Oh, yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. What are you doing, Frick? Can you arrange that? I'd take a couple.
Tony has priority because he's the furthest ahead in time.
Yeah. What time is it in Tony? Well, Tony's 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah, that's what I said.
And who is the second one?
James Burrows.
James?
Andrew.
Andrew.
Why do you call him James?
Because that's his username.
Oh, well, I love to hear from Jim. I'd love to hear from Andrew too. Those are great. I'm gonna stop right there. Have we got these ready to go? As soon as you get them ready to go. These are two guys you're gonna want to hear from. Three if Andrew, Philip. Three if Philip speaks.
Did you tell him events?
I got some more.
Keep going then.
Pete Kern.
Pete! I think of you, Pete, every time I put my sweater, my hockey jersey on, I get Pete Kern sweater. Pete is an EOD down in Virginia, and he was here in our class. He and Jeff O'Connor are friends. And every once in a while, one of the vets, I'll say on the drive up from Bangor when we pick him up at the airport, said, any of you guys play hockey? And we have all kinds of extra gear. We play three times a week throughout the year. So Pete came out and played with us. He's one of the better ones to volunteer. Although we had a real good one this year too, from a family of 16. The next,
Okay, Mikhail Miller
oh, Michael.
and Andrew, we've already mentioned, Andrew Burho.
Yeah, Andrew's in the process of healing from a very serious injury this summer, and he's doing wonderful. I talk to him quite often. Super guy. What a great find he was.
Wally Rao,
Wally up in Ontario, Canadian.
Phil Lawrence,
Philip,
Jerry Pickering,
Jerry, Vietnam medic,
Ferris
who sent us a really nice first aid kit. Did you say Ferris?
Ferris Butler,
Ferris Bueller.
Bueller.
Ferris.
And Boom Boom, Luther Jr.
Boom Boom. Boom Boom, thank you. We got our Boom Boom sent us. We got a present from Boom Boom today. Frick got a whole bunch of barbecue sauce, and he sent us the Seinfeld characters.
Thank you, Boom Boom. Barbecue
George
sauces were delicious.
You have to know Seinfeld fairly well to know George is holding an eclair, but it was hovering. And Kramer's got a piece of Kenny Rogers chicken. That was awesome memories. All right, as soon as you got one ready to go, Frick, tell me.
I'm just telling them to send me their number
Okay.
via email.
Anybody else, Ken? Is Jeff on tonight? Kevin Burris?
I haven't seen
No?
either.
Okay. Frick, give me questions while we're doing this.
Andrew Campbell in the chat says,
Hey, Andrew.
I bought a used backsaw at a local thrift store. How do I determine the cut type it is meant for?
Well, Jake, have we got my samples here?
I was.
The rip and the crosscut. The wooden samples.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to put that one on pause until Jake finds this for us. Then I'll be able to show you. It's a lot easier than explaining it. Next, Frick. I'm so happy that Andrew spoke up. That's awesome. Andrew is a good guy. And we got him, it was a stroke of luck. We had a cancellation, and we had somebody local that had applied. All right, so here we are answering this question. So if your saw teeth, if you were to put a straight edge on your saw teeth, and it was square to your blade like that, then it's a rip saw. If there's fleam or there's angle, and you put your something like this on there, and it's on an angle like that, then it's a crosscut saw. Easiest way to tell. I suppose you could also look at it this way too. Your rip teeth, so your saw cuts this way. Your rip teeth, the part that does the cutting is pretty much straight up and down. Whereas the crosscut teeth, there's going to be more of an angle like this. It's going to be laid back. And then you got to restore it. It's not always a great deal. Pick up, if you can find it, Tom Law did a video, and he wrote a little pamphlet on hand saws. I'm sure the video is still available. Sharpening, it's Tom Law Sharpening Saws. And it's as good information as you're going to find when it comes to both restoring saws and sharpening and setting them. Really good info. Next, Rick.
It's 8 o'clock. Did you want to do something?
Yeah, I do. Okay, so I'm going to pause from answering questions for a minute because this message has to get out. This is why we do this. We are trying to help people that have put on the line everything for your freedom, and your freedom, and your freedom, and your freedom, and my freedom. And they come back severely, most come back severely broken from the experiences of being in a war zone. I've never been there, and I don't ever want to go there based on what I see. But I have all the compassion in the world and patience in helping the guys that have done that. You know, I say guys, men and women. So we received a donation just in the last couple of weeks from an individual, and it was a sizable donation. I don't know if he wants me to read it or not, but do you have the actual paperwork that I can read? And this was in memory of his brother. You're pointing at Victor Lee, eldest son, 15 siblings.
That's his name. That's his brother's name.
Oh, that's his brother. His brother was the eldest? I didn't know that.
Lance Corporal.
Okay. So this is from Philip Burns. He says, "Hi, Luther. I have made the donation online to fund one class for a selected U.S. Marine Corps class participant for 2025. See receipt attached. Let me know if there are any issues with the attachment. I'm also attaching the USMC graduation photo of my brother Victor. His information, Victor Lee Burns, Lance Corporal, U.S. Marine. Date of birth, 9/16/1947, Shreveport, Louisiana, which I have relatives there. He was the eldest son. He had 15 siblings. And he was killed in action on June 27, 1967 in Quezon, Son, Vietnam.
His picture's up now.
Please let me know if you need anything additional. Thank you for your support in paying tribute to Victor as part of the incredible program of Rob's teaching program." So we are happy to give that shout out, Philip.
His picture's up now on the.
His picture's up there. That's
Were
wonderful.
we supposed to read the thing that Luther sent?
Where's that?
Well, it's in front of me.
Do you have something different?
Yeah.
Well, let me come over and read it. I didn't.
So you basically, you took care of this part.
Yeah.
But then Luther kind of wanted you to describe.
Oh, okay. I'll be happy to do that. Is it? You have to scroll down, or is that the end of it there?
I'll scroll down.
So this donation was $7,000, by the way, and I say that because when people do good things, it needs to be spoken so other people can be inspired. The Battle of Quezon, just as it's pronounced, was a huge and very famous fight for the Marines, probably the most famous of all U.S. Marine actions in Vietnam. The Battle of Quezon lasted from 21 January to 9 July 1968 and was conducted near the border between North and South Vietnam. The main U.S. force defending the Quezon Battle Base, KSCB, were two regiments of the U.S. Marines, around 6,000 men, supported by elements from the U.S. Army and U.S. Air Force, as well as a small number of ARVN troops. These were pitted against 2 to 3 division-sized elements of the North Vietnamese People's Army, 50,000 strong. Quezon was a huge base, and the North Vietnamese surrounded it and tried to cut it off. The Marines fought back with massive air and artillery support, keeping the NVA from gaining the high ground that surrounded the base. It was bitter fighting. The U.S. 1st Cavalry Division eventually fought through to Quezon and broke the siege. American commanders considered the defense of Quezon a success, but shortly after lifting the siege, decided to abandon the base rather than risk similar sieges in the future. U.S. killed 274, wounded 2,541. North Vietnamese casualties were estimated between 10 and 15,000. Please show the, okay, there it is. Thank you. Thank you for the sacrifice of your brother, and thank you for honoring him with the donation that may very well save another Marine's life post-war. I think we've lost more soldiers post Afghanistan and Iraq than we did over there, which is the terrible part of this. Do we have somebody ready?
I haven't received anybody's contact information.
Okay.
If Tony or Andrew,
Tony needs 10 minutes.
Okay, well then, what about Andrew, or
just send me the email or phone number that is best used to FaceTime. FaceTime is the only option right now. So if you don't have an Apple device, we'll have to postpone it. But if you do have an Apple device, send your contact information to frick@RobCosman.com, and then I will give you a call.
okay, what about Andrew?
Same.
Okay, well, as soon as one of them calls in. I want to show you something else. So, our friend Moose, recently lost his youngest son. He was only 50 years old. And Moose and his daughter-in-law came. He'd asked me to do an urn. His name was Jason. He asked me to do an urn, and we went back and forth on this. And he was a huge fan. I can't understand football in the family, but Minnesota Vikings. So there are Canadians who actually like football. And this was the Vince Lombardi trophy, or it's a replica of. It's made out of Cuban mahogany. Now we got a piece. Cuban mahogany is hard to come by, but Mel at Exotic Woods had some, and for some reason Jake decided to buy a piece of 16-quarter Cuban mahogany. Don't know what we paid for it, but little did I know that was going to be needed. So there's your football, and our friends at Dorian Sports, Mark Dorian, he did the laser engraving. We have the stitching up on the top, and then there's the writing, and it says, "A shining light who filled our lives with love, joy, and acceptance. Here lies Jason the Hawk McLeod, 1974 to 2024. So for the woodworkers out there, it was tough trying to get that to fit, but this is solid. This is hollowed out, and underneath this brass plate is the vial of holding the ashes. But we actually I've done. This is the second one. I got one more to go. That'll sit at Moose's house. This was our prototype, in case you're wondering what that pine one is up there. So that'll go home with to Moose's to Jason's wife tonight. Now, question, Frick.
Just a quick question. Whose hat are you wearing? Who does that represent?
Who knows best about this? Where's
Kyle.
Kyle knows about this?
Yeah.
Kyle. So this is an organization in Fredericton, New Brunswick, or Gagetown, where we have a large military base. And the veteran farmer helps soldiers sort out their benefits. He also he grows cannabis that is used in creams and whatever that the soldiers have access to. So, but he helps the soldiers as a volunteer. So, and who gave us the hat, Jake?
Ron.
Ron came here to our last class, and he was blue chip, meaning John Brown, who came to our class a year ago, recommended Ron. So Ron came down and he spent the week with us, and he's been back several times. He's a good guy. He brought me some bear fat. He makes his own marijuana cream, and apparently bear fat is the best delivery. So I've got in my fridge, I've got some bear fat marijuana cream. So if anybody's got an acre of pain, come see me. Next, Frick.
Ted Scott would like to know how you set the small teeth on your saw.
I did. Well, you're going to have to set the small teeth the same way you all of our teeth are relatively small. You're talking about the little tiny ones up front. I don't know if I'd even ever worry about those. They're so tiny, and their job is just to literally just start to cut. But that would be tough. 22 teeth per inch, but you can do it. But you would definitely have to go in there and file that plunger, because otherwise, this one's actually, this old one's got a small plunger. That would actually be better than the rest. You just have to file that to enough of a point that it'll only touch one tooth and not bump into either tooth on either side. Next, Frick.
Clemens Martin in the chat. He says, a little
Hi,
off topic,
Clemens.
but can the shoulder vise be retrofitted to any bench, or does it have to be designed in?
Okay, say that again, please.
He said, a little off topic, but can the shoulder vise be retrofitted to any bench, or does it have to be
Can this
designed?
shoulder vise? Somebody just recently did. Jake, do you remember who sent that picture to us?
No, I don't remember, no.
Just recently, we got a picture of somebody who did add this to our bench. So you could, you're just gonna have to be a little bit inventive, but there's no reason why you couldn't. However, I would suggest that for the same, you get that same benefit from a Moxon vise. Where you headed, move, sir? Oh. You can get that same benefit from a Moxon vise a heck of a lot easier. So consider that. Nice thing about a Moxon vise, it brings your work up a little bit, so you're standing up to saw instead of bending over. Any of the guys responded yet?
We're calling Tony in 4 minutes.
Calling Tony in 4 minutes. What about Andrew?
I haven't heard from him.
Well, can you call Andrew?
I don't have his number.
That's
I
what
do.
We're trying to get them to send us their number.
I got Andrew's number.
I have some.
Yeah, and Ken's got Andrew's number. Any more vets to shout out to?
Jonathan.
Who?
Jonathan.
Jonathan. Oh, Jonathan Sidney? He said,
Oh.
John's here.
well, who's here?
John Hayes.
John, yeah.
Oh, John, did he just come in?
Yeah.
A little late.
Is he responding to my,
No, he's just
oh,
came on.
he just popped on? Hello, John Hayes. John Hayes is a great story. Blown up, lost both legs, lost his hip, his bum, wrecked his guts, took all the meat off his forearm. He's right-handed, and yet he pulled off a dovetail like that. Absolutely incredible. So John is my assistant when I go teach in Florida. And we just set the classes. So I'm coming to Florida, I think the 3rd week of January. I'm doing possibly 2 half-blind dovetail workshops. It's their hands-on. There's benches, vices, the whole bit. And 1 through dovetail class. Contact the Woodcraft store in Orlando for details to register. John will be my assistant, and a dandy assistant he is. Next, Frick.
Don Jamerson. Good evening, Rob.
John?
Don.
Don. Hi, Don.
I purchased a dovetail saw through my local Woodcraft, unaware of handle sizes. I have the regular size instead of the large. Is it possible to purchase a large handle?
Well, how big is your hand, Don? Because I'll show you how you determine that. If your hand, and there aren't very many people that have a paw this big, but you may, hold your hand like that and measure across the base of your fingers. If you exceed 4 inches, then yeah, you want the big saw. If you don't, if you're anywhere under 4 inches, so I'm holding it so that the top, I'm reading the top of the measuring tape, and I'm right at the widest part. I shouldn't say the widest part. The widest part might be down there. Right at the base of the fingers. I go across like that, and I come out 3 3/8. So you got a big hand if you do, but no, the saws, we build the saws one at a time. So they're not there's no, they wouldn't, the holes wouldn't necessarily line up. Sorry. Next, Frick.
Drago.
We're just getting into dovetail season, you guys. Throw these questions at me. It's getting cold outside, unless you're in Florida. Time to be in the shop, going to work.
Yeah, I need more questions. I don't have.
Well, let's get.
well, I have
How's our audience?
323. Drago Dichev from Santa Barbara, California.
Hi, Drago.
Says, I'm planning to buy Rob Cosman's crosscut saw, 3/4 size, that is 22 teeth per inch. Can I sharpen it by hand like any other saw, and what file do I need?
Yeah, yes, you can. It's the little tiny one. What number is it, Jake?
18 to 22.
Yeah, so this little one on this website is listed for saws 18 to 22 TPI. What time's John? What time is Tony?
Momentarily.
No. Did anybody get a hold of Andrew?
No, but we have his number.
Okay. So we're going to talk to Tony Payne. Tony's down in Aussie land. You just about to
No.
hook him in? No? Okay. Give me another question then, Frick, while we're waiting.
This is Chris O'Connor in Toronto.
Hey, Chris.
He says, my grandpa was in the midst of retoothing a backsaw before he passed. It's a blank saw plate at the moment, so I don't have anything to reference. I would like to complete it in his memory. What is the best way to go about cutting the teeth? Thanks, Rob and team.
So if you pick up, the easiest way to do it is to get another saw that's the same as the saw you want, that has the same tooth configuration that you want, and you literally clamp the two of them together and file through the gullets of the reference to create the teeth on the back. I'm just going to look and see if I have that book for you. I usually show it to everybody in the class when they're here, so I thought it would be right at my fingertips, but I don't see it. I'm gonna go find that. So, I hope you understood that, but go hunt down Tom Law's video on saw sharpening. But then there was another one. Jake, do you remember the book I'm talking about? It's a paperback. Dang it. I find it and then I lose it. It might be up in my office. If you send me a text, 506-977-1401, send me a text and I'll find that book, take a picture of it and send it to you so you can go get it. It's what you want. Next, Frick.
I don't really have anything, to be honest.
Let me show them. Well, Jake, can you grab the camera and I'll show them what we got this week? So we are in the process of doing a lot of veneering. So if you,
We get Tony.
oh, all right, well there's Tony. Tony,
Hang on.
Hey, how are you?
Dandy, how are you?
All right, what's going on?
Well, we just want to hear what's going on in your part of the country, the world.
Well, it's quite warm down here at the moment, and I've just stepped out.
Hang on.
Just
Oh.
stepped out for a coffee.
Hold on a second, Tony. We haven't got the volume figured out yet. Do you need my microphone over there?
There we go. That might be better.
Okay, now we can. So in 3 or 4 minutes, can you just tell the audience your experience with Purple Heart Project, how it helped, so that they'll understand the urgency of what we do, please.
Yeah, I can do that, most certainly. It's a great organisation. I'm just going to wander into something a bit quieter while I'm talking. It's a great organisation, and the one thing I've found is most people think they're not deserving of it. Well, that's not your call. Put your application in, put all your deployments, all your justification, do all that sort of stuff, and then let the guys make a call. Most of them, not most, but a lot of people think they're not deserving. And I get that. That's a military veteran thing worldwide. Don't sell yourself short. Give it a go. Put the application in. When I first put it in, COVID hit, so it all stopped, and then I had to reapply. So just keep giving it a go until you're successful, but don't decide yourself that you're not worthy. Let the Cosmans and that crew do that, because they know what they're looking at. They've looked at enough now. When Rob called me to tell me that I was successful, it was actually a pretty ordinary day. So when Rob called and I answered, it was good. It made a huge difference to the day, and then from then on. Always been a little bit into woodworking. Starting to get some tools, found Rob online, as well as many other YouTubers, and went from there. And then when I was successful, it was a long flight over, many planes and stopovers and bits and pieces. But I can tell you, it was incredibly worth it. Still in contact with a few of the lads that were there today. Kyle is still there. Still talks to Kyle quite a bit, but thankfully it's in writing, so I can actually understand what he's saying. and not talking to him face to face, because that is a little bit difficult. Somebody says I have an accent. Well, when I'm at home, I don't. So all good there.
I think even Kyle has an accent when he's at home.
Yeah, I would think so. But look, I strongly encourage everyone to apply. I've got a couple of mates here that I've said to apply. Two of them, I don't think one did. Another one is incredibly keen to do it and put his application in, so we'll see how that goes. The great Aussie wave, there's flies everywhere here at the moment. So yeah, look, do it. If you're a veteran and you experienced an injury, physical or psychological, from your service, operational service, then put your application in and see what happens. Incredibly worth it, and it's changed the way I've looked at woodwork and life, and my ability to get into the shed and try and make something. So yeah, do it.
Thank you, Tony. I love your shirt.
Yeah, it's purely coincidental, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I had it on because it's a hot day and it's a nice shirt to wear in the heat. And then Jake, said, "Are you ready to go?" And I go, "Yep, okay." So, yeah, my wife's looking for me to hand me a coffee. So, but that's okay.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time and doing this. Hopefully, people will understand the importance of what we're trying to accomplish. Spread the word.
Anytime at all, Rob. Happy to help. Happy to spread the word.
Thanks, Tony.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay. You too. Bye.
We got Andrew. Can you get a hold of Andrew? Frick? You got his number. Can you get a hold of Andrew? I'm going to show them what we just got. Can you use your phone, Jake? Your camera, I mean. So Mel, good friend of mine, owns Exotic Wood. So if you're looking for wood, try Mel. So we're doing a project that's involving all this veneer. So he put me onto this site, friend of his, that's all they do is sell veneer. So I get looking in there and I started buying stuff I didn't need, but I had to have. So this is a flitch of Claro walnut burl. I don't know how well it shows up on the camera, but in case you don't know, if this had been a solid piece of wood, you only get to see the top. A whole lot of it's wasted.
You've got lacquer thin right there if you need it.
No, it's all right. I think it's good. Yeah, here. Where's that piece? It's been kicking around my desk for the last.
Where'd you put it?
It's right over here. Now this is a piece of Claro walnut and English walnut, and that's actually a graft line. So that's where the two different trees grew together. But the advantage of this is that you can take that 1-inch piece and you can make 34 pieces, because there is no sawdust, because they don't saw the veneer, they slice it with a knife. So that 1/4-inch bit of material is going to allow me to use this multiple times. And you glue it. Now in this case it was glued to a piece of MDF, but you can glue it to solid wood. So when I do the drawer fronts, I even thought about doing it with this. This is just a little, this was we used to teach a class on drawer making. So you would take a solid walnut drawer front and then you would just veneer that over top, so you would get that beautiful burl. And if you wanted, because the flitch, this section right there is going to be the same on this piece, on that piece, and that piece. So I could take a piece big enough for those fronts, cut it right there, cut 3 of them, and then glue it on all 3, and they look identical, which just is a really nice way of dressing something up. So that is That was a side purchase. Didn't need it, but glad I got it.
I don't think we can go out there.
No, I can't, but we're going to go right here. So this desk that we're building, which is
What do you
right here, this desk, we decided it's going to be all fiddleback ash. So this ash will have all of the, kind of see it in this piece. I don't know how well it shows up, but you can see all that figure in there. So this is going to be ash up, over, and down. It's going to be ash on the inside. This modesty panel is all going to be that fiddleback ash. But these drawer banks are going to be made out of Macassar ebony. So I ordered, and the nice thing about this, when you go to this guy's site, you actually see what you're buying. Meaning they don't all look the same. So what you see is what you get. So this was, probably bought way more than I needed. But this is Macassar ebony. How many leaves did we counted that the other day? How many do I have?
We didn't count this.
One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 10 pieces. I think this roll is 10 feet long. So the sides of the drawer box will be done in this. Now I'll use solid Macassar ebony lippings. Let me show you what that is. So here's a piece of Macassar ebony. By the way, this stuff is $120 a board foot. So it's not cheap. So I will band, meaning I will glue, just like I did here. I will glue this onto the edge of the MDF all the way around. Oh, by the way, so see what we did there? So we glued the MDF, we glued the solid ash onto the MDF, and then we glued a piece of that fiddleback ash onto here. So it'll look like fiddleback all the way around. So we will, the drawer fronts are going to be solid. They're going to cost a fortune. The drawer fronts are going to be solid Macassar ebony, but then I'm going to veneer the front so that the sides of the box, which is what this is, so we're kind of experimenting because we're going to do something a little bit different. I want the grain to run from here over to here. So there'll be a break line right here, but the grain's going to run all the way across. I'm doing this one just as an experiment. Obviously, the one that we do will be out of Macassar ebony. So this will be Macassar ebony. This will all be that same veneer, although it'll be glued onto solid wood. So when you open it up like that, you'll see the dovetail. You'll see the Macassar ebony dovetail pins up against, and I'm going to use holly as the drawer side. So if you can imagine what that's going to look like, bright white holly with jet black Macassar ebony. It's just going to be awesome. And that stuff looks fantastic. So that's what we're doing. Did we find Andrew? Frick, did you find Andrew?
No, I don't know his number.
What? Frick.
We gave you his number.
No, you didn't. I need it back. And why aren't we using the same phone as we do?
Hello.
All right. Any other questions?
Bob?
Yes, Rob wanted to know if you threw one alive.
Just 3 or 4 minutes to tell him what it meant to him.
Here's another question from Michael Dodo. How do you fix a
Hi,
kink
Michael.
in a handsaw plate?
How do you fix that kink?
Yeah.
So you don't have an iPhone or an iPad? Okay,
Even if it just has voice. Even if it just has voice.
we can do it with you next time.
I don't have any reception in here, so I can't.
We can just use his voice, Ken.
Okay, thanks, Andrew, appreciate it.
Okay.
He doesn't have an iPhone.
Did we hear from Philip?
I didn't.
Well, 1 out of 3 is not bad.
We can plan for one a week.
Yes. So let me rehash this. What we're asking you to do as a new way of fundraising is to go on the page, thepurpleheartproject.org, and instead of making a one-time donation, we're going to reward you for doing a reoccurring donation. So whether it's $10 a month or $1,000 a month, And for every 10 recurring donations we get, we're going to give away a nice prize valued at about $300. Tonight we're going to do a dovetail saw. And for every 10 we get, we'll do another dovetail saw.
Brent said we have 10 now.
Brent says we have 10. Thank you. So there's one saw. Let's go for 20. A kink in the saw blade.
In the handsaw plate.
In the handsaw plate, yeah. So I had that happen. I can't remember what I was doing. I think when we put these copper pins in, I don't know if you've seen this before, but we put copper pins, 4 copper pins to hold the blade into the brass. And we used to literally hammer them by hand. Now Willie made us a press. And I slipped and I hit the blade and it left a dent. And everything I did to try to get rid of that kink, and it did not come out. So I don't know. I'm sure somebody who's gone in and repaired handsaws will tell you. I don't think you'll ever get completely rid of it, but I'm pretty sure by pounding on the backside you can flatten out and you can certainly make it usable. You'll probably always see it. I can't imagine being able to completely make it disappear. Any other vets to say hello to?
No, Derek. Derek's on.
Oh, Derek's on?
Yeah.
Hey, Derek. Derek was my assistant just this last month, right?
Yeah.
In October. And is Charlie on?
No. Charlie, it's not Morales, is it?
No.
Oh, Charlie Ray, no.
Yeah, Derek's friend. Charlie Ray, who was another Vietnam vet, great guy. And Derek was a wonderful help too. They always are. Will we run out of stuff to talk about?
I got a question.
Yeah, what is it?
This is from Tim from Rhode Island.
Hi, Tim.
Recently I sharpened my saw and I'm having trouble sawing straight down. It's definitely sharp, but I feel like the saw wants to drift to the right. Is it possible that I mess up my set, and how do I correct that?
Yeah, so the easiest way to correct it, put a piece of wood in your vise. Put a piece of wood in your vise, make your saw, or make your cut. Go the full depth, don't push it excessively hard. If you push it excessively hard, if there's there may not be a problem and you can create a problem. So just let the weight of the saw do the work. Make your cut. Go to full depth, it's just going to exaggerate any problem so that you can identify it more readily. Then you're going to take a straight edge, and you're going to put a straight edge right beside that cut. I'm not using this as a square, I'm just using the blade as a straight edge. And that should show a nice straight cut. Now, if it's wandering, meaning instead of being straight, it's drifting off to the right, say, well, that means you have more set on the right side of your saw than you do on the left. So the blade's always going to follow the path of least resistance. So if you have more set over here, it's going to want to follow over like that. So what you need to do to fix it, the easiest way is to get a relatively dull stone. You don't want something real aggressive. If it's real aggressive, it'll be easy to do more, to take off more than you want, or you need to. I'm wandering around looking for this rag. So take your, I wouldn't use a ceramic stone, I wouldn't use a water stone, because it can easily gouge them. So this diamond plate works perfectly. It's a 1,000 grit side. It's a well-worn stone, so it's not very aggressive. Not very aggressive. Set your saw. This is the right side of my blade. Set it like this. I'm going to hold my thumb right there. That's all the pressure. And I'm not going to really do this because I don't have a problem. And I'm just going to pull it like that. One stroke. And I'll come over and I'll make another cut. Remembering, let just the weight of the saw do the work. Don't push it. And if it straightened out, great. If it didn't quite straighten out, do it again. But never do more than one stroke at a time before you go back and check it. Pull that along there. Check it. And just keep doing that until it gets rid of that drift and you get a nice straight cut. Now, if you end up taking off too much set in the process of doing that, well, now you got to reset your saw. But either way, you have a problem. You've got to fix it. That's an easy way to fix it. And usually you can do that without an issue, meaning you're not going to have to go reset. If you do, then you're going to have to go buy yourself a saw set an antique one. They're not that expensive. And you're going to have to go in through those, you're going to have to go in and do those modifications I mentioned. Take that plunger, the part that actually pushes against the tooth, and file the side so that it comes to a point so you're not pushing on 2 teeth instead of 1. And then your anvil, set that over to the absolute least amount. Now if you had to, you could do it this way. Set your anvil for the least amount of set. Set your anvil for the least amount of set. That's using the word too many times. Okay, go in. Now this is the part that'll all make you go crazy. So when I'm doing something small like this, what I'll do is put my eyes on, identify which tooth is facing where. So this tooth, this one is facing me, so I'll put a dot on the one. It's going to be every other tooth. Don't expect it to be quick. Go through and do that. Go all the way down the saw. Do the same thing on the other side. Then I'll get my saw set in here. Lots of light. You gotta have the light pouring on there. And go in and I will set each tooth. And you can only go, I mean, you can squeeze as hard as you want. It's only gonna push it against the anvil. Do every one, turn and do the other side. Then you're gonna go over and you're gonna make a cut. And chances are, you're going to have more set than you want. It's gonna be a little bit sloppy in the kerf. That's okay. Get out your diamond stone, do one pass, do a pass on the other side. Come over, make a test cut. Keep doing that, hopefully taking the same amount off each side so that you don't introduce drift. Keep doing that until you eventually get a nice narrow kerf. Still have clearance for the blade to go down, not binding, but you get a nice kerf. And you want a nice kerf because the narrower the set, the smoother the wall or the side of the kerf is, the better the glue joint's going to be when you put the two pieces together. So that's a way that you can set your saw using what's commercially available. And so you kind of have to go farther than you want, but then it's easy to come back with the stone. So it's not a complete waste, and you don't have to go in and do all those modifications to your saw set to get it to work. You're probably looking at least 3 thou set, probably 4. Although I don't know that, I can't guarantee that, but I know I've done it before, and it was more set than I wanted, so I just had to go in and hone it off. Next, Frick.
This is another and more question. It's from Paul Francoeur.
What do you mean and more?
Well, because our topic was backsaws and more, so this falls into the and more
Oh,
category.
and more?
It has
Okay.
nothing to do with backsaws. Paul Francoeur asks,
Hi, Paul. I know that name.
what brand of lacquer do you use when using the canned lacquer on small boxes? Any extra details such as drying time between coats, number of coats used, etc. would be helpful. Thank you.
Do we have any deft here, Jake?
I don't think so. I haven't bought it in probably 2 years.
So, Paul, if you're, I know Paul, but I can't place him in terms of where he lives. If you're in Canada, no, but if you're in the U.S.,
I think he's in Quebec.
yeah, I thought so too. I'll answer it this way anyway, if you can somehow get it, because they won't ship it. They won't ship it by air. Deft, D-E-F-T, makes lacquer in a spray can. I like the satin finish. And it just, oh my goodness, it lays especially for doing small boxes. The problem with using a spray gun is it blows a little box around. But this spray can, this spray nozzle, and you can adjust your tip on your spray can. You can turn the little tip on the end so you can get a fan this way or a fan that way. But it just lays it on like velvet. Oh, it's gorgeous. Now the downside to that is that Deft lacquer has no water resistance whatsoever. So if you ever get any water near it, it's going to leave a spot. Hopefully that won't happen. But 3 coats of that, it just, oh my goodness, it's such a lovely finish. It was my favorite finish of all time. The only downside, as I mentioned, is it didn't have any water resistance whatsoever. Becker Acroma makes Becker Acroma is a product that I have used for 30 plus years. And what's the name of it now, Ken? Because the company was sold.
Chroma Pro.
So what's the name of is that the name of the company?
Oh, I don't know. That's the product.
So now it was sold. The product is now called Acroma Pro. And the nice thing about this is you can spray on a coat. Within 20 minutes, it's dry, and you can go in, and always better to scrape between coats and sand. You can lay down 3 coats inside of a couple of hours, which is amazing. If you're going to do that, you have to have some experience with spraying in order to get good results. And the experience comes from a lot of work without good results, so darned if you do, darned if you don't. You can brush it, but it dries really fast. And the problem with brushing is there's a good chance it's not going to level for you nicely. But I've gone in with a foam brush and done some spot repairs, but it eats the foam, so you only have minutes, more like seconds, to get put it on, and then your foam brush deteriorates. But spraying is the best way. My first choice would be the Def product. And there's another brand that Mohawk, I think, makes one as well. I didn't like it nearly as well, but it was satisfactory. But try to get the Def. I don't even know who sells it anymore. Woodcraft used to. They stopped selling it. The last time I bought some, I got it from Rockler. There's a Rockler in Portland, Maine. So when we were down there for any reason, I'd buy a half a dozen cans and bring them back with me. It was that I liked the product that much. Beautiful stuff. Next, Frick.
Next one's from D. Edward Rice in the chat.
Hey, D.
Has Rob ever heard
letter
of the...
D and then Edward?
Yep.
Not D-E-E.
No, like D. Edward Rice.
Oh, D.
Has Rob ever heard of the method of hacksawing to the depth of each gullet, then filing out the appropriate shape of the tooth while retoothing? This rather than having to file it out completely.
Well, no, I haven't. But I mean, if you're doing a big handsaw, that would make sense. Get rid of a lot of the material. I have not done any I don't think I've done any restoration work on handsaws at all that I can remember. Maybe I did a long time ago, but no. I mean, if you're into restoring tools, it's a great hobby. But I'd rather make new ones. Make new ones, make them exactly the way we want them, and then they cut like a dream. And ours do. I didn't show you that, but yeah, it's when we teach the classes, we always have 4 or 5 of the grip and 4 or 5 of the crosscut, because the guys take a big hunk of lumber and then they've got to process it. Jake, can you move that camera back so I can use this? So this is a piece of pine, but it works on hardwoods just as well. So this is a 7-point rip. This is a 9-point crosscut. And just support the wood. Use your thumb to get it started. Just let the weight of the saw do the work. With only 3 thous set, we designed a saw specifically for hand sawing dry furniture grade lumber, as opposed to construction grade or saws made for construction lumber. And it cuts so easily and so clean. Let the weight of the saw do the work. Ton of fun. We make them right here. Get yours. Next, Frick.
Take them out. Daniel Elsie wants to know.
Hey, Daniel.
What do the numbers on the saw set anvil mean? Do they indicate the number of teeth per inch on the saw being sharpened?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I'm looking at this. Let me turn this one. So it starts at 4, and it's really, I mean, I can't imagine that much set. That thing is a 1/16 of an inch over. So 4 TPI,
Yeah, it might be TPI.
and it goes up, it only goes to 12, which the only saw we have that is 12 teeth per inch. Backsaw is our large tenon. I don't know what the number is. Sorry, I can't give you an answer. Well, you know what? It's the same on this one. It goes from 4 to 12. Now this one is a little bit different. This one, this antique one, this one, the anvil is a round disc that instead of this one, the disc is standing vertically. This one, it's horizontally. So you loosen it and you rotate that disc. So you're still pushing. So actually, Jake, you want to have a look at this? You're still pushing with a plunger up against an anvil, but the anvil is round. So there's the slope on the side. You can see it. So as you turn that, it gets more pronounced or less pronounced. So this one goes from, I don't know what 0 is. Well, hey, if you know what, maybe I never looked at this close enough. If 0 is no,
Maybe somebody in the chat said maybe it's degrees of set.
there's nothing on 0.
No,
We might actually be able to make this one work.
Well, the 4 is a lot of set, and the 12 is.
I'm gonna see if I can make this one work. I'm gonna experiment with this week. This one goes from 0 to 4. And if 0 is actually straight up and down, and it is, that means that would actually be good one. That one could provide us with 2,000 set. I will experiment with that. I've only got one like that. I just bought these at whenever I would go to a wood show. There's usually somebody selling antique tools. Where did I find those? So I managed to pick up 100 or so. I think I got more than that. There's a turquoise one that I don't know where it is. This is the Eclipse. This is the one that you can still buy. And they're all pretty much the same style. This one doesn't have, this is a Stanley number 7. I can't even read it. But this one, I would assume you would replace these pieces because it does not have an adjustable, and that has a really aggressive set. Round. This is the only one that's different. Well, these two. Yeah. Is it out there? But I'll check this one out and see if we can find a way, because I'm sure there's no patents left on this, as old as it appears. I'll also see if I can get that. I'll take it apart so I can clean up that plunger. Yeah, I'll see what I can do about that. Frick, you're dried up?
Yeah.
You're done for?
Mikhail wants to know if you're still planning on building.
Michael!
No, this is not that. It's not Michael, it's someone else. Are you still going to build your own hand planes?
Yeah, we are. Jake, you want to give a report? Well, let me show you something. We have the blades settled, chip breakers, handles.
No?
Well, we have them settled.
Well,
Yeah.
I have the design.
We'll start producing those soon. We've got the first 100. We've got the first 100 that will be. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. Won't be that long. Of course, whenever you're doing something like this, starting from scratch, how do you guess how long it's going to take? So many moving parts, so many different places involved. Our machine shop is local, which is great, and they do incredible work. Wow, incredible. So we'll make the announcement.
Is there an issue with people's packages because of the Canada Post strike?
So the post office in Canada is currently on strike, but about 4 months ago or 6 months ago, UPS came to us and they gave us a rate that in a lot of cases cut shipping in half for customers. So we are using them exclusively now. We weren't using Canada Post very much at all, but we will go back to them when they come off strike. But for the most part, no, we haven't had any issues. Next, Rick.
Will wheels be back in stock soon?
Wheels.
That's
Jake,
from
do you
Doug.
update them on that?
We have new ones.
We have new, these are casters so that you can move your bench around. We found a new one that is nice and sturdy, very well made. And when will they be ready? When will they could hit the website in the next month?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely within the next month. We got a few things coming. Stay tuned for those. Shall we do our draw and call it a night since nobody else is, any more vets to say hello to?
Can you quickly explain double
Gotta say hello to
tenons?
Angie. Pardon?
Can you quickly explain double tenons?
Double tenons?
That's from Anthony.
Well, can I explain a double tenon?
We've got a sample.
Yeah, I have. There's two.
Well, I'm looking for it.
You go look.
Sibby says that he was trying to resaw 12-inch wide yellow birch with my new RC rip saw since I don't have access to a bandsaw. It takes a lot of time. Is that normal?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Build good arms. Yeah, put a handle on the other side of the saw and get your wife on that side. You pull, she push. You pull, she push. Yeah, that's a long job. Now when I do it to stay on track, I'll saw from one side and I'll go down on an angle like that, and then I'll go to the other side and follow the line, and that's the best way of staying on. It's easy for it to drift on a big wide cut like that. So double tenons. Now there's two examples. I'm not sure which one you're asking me about. So here's an example where instead of having one great big gaping hole or mortise in this piece, I leave a little bit of material left right there, which I think strengthens the joint. So there's an example of a double tenon. Now, you can't tell because it's not going to come apart, but down here on my bench, that big leg has two tenons side by side. They're parallel to each other. So the tenon, where's my pointer? There's a 1/2 inch tenon here that starts a 1/4 of an inch in and goes to within a 1/4 of an inch of that side. And then there's connective tissue left here, and then the same 1/2 inch tenon is repeated out here. So there's 2 pegs in there that help to hold that together, and over this side there's 2 pegs. So you're just breaking it up. Jake did one recently that has 4 tenons in it. And it's a big post, and it's just, my reasoning for this is, I think you're better off having 2 small tenons, 2 small mortises with a bit of material holding that together than to have one great big open one. Your call. Anything else, Rick?
No, let's do our draw.
All right, we're going to give away 3 dead cat sweaters, compliments of Moose. And then how many?
One.
How many did we get tonight?
12.
12?
12 recurring and $1,800 donate. 1,850.
Wait a minute, I'm lost here. Is that what the 12?
The 1850 is the total in donations for tonight.
Is that from the?
Includes
Be
12
combo.
recurring donors.
Okay, so either way, we're giving away. Okay, good. Thank you. If we can do this every night, we'll get to a point where we know what we're working with. just makes it a lot easier for us to plan, and we know how hard we got to go pound on doors to try to find more. And if you know of any corporations that are that support veteran organizations or veteran supporting organizations, let us know about that. We're more than happy to contact them on our vets' behalf. And Angie, I haven't mentioned Angie in a while. This is Angie. She is Ken's cousin. She and her sister Lynn are in charge of all of our Purple Heart t-shirts. They do all the packaging, and they do a wonderful job of doing that. So make sure you have a Purple Heart t-shirt. People ask, you can tell them the story. Big shout out to Angie. She's working awful hard because she had to cover for Jake. He was away on vacation. She was putting in double time. At least double time. She must be exhausted. And Kevin, I got to mention this. Can we tell a little story about the bird? If I say something wrong, you tell me.
Okay.
So Angie is, because of an illness, Angie is confined to her bedroom right now, but we got her locker already, so she'll be coming here to work soon. She's, did she just turn 70?
Yeah.
She just had her 70th birthday. Last May. So Angie's world is her bedroom. Because of her condition, she can't move her comfortably at all. So she had this little bird, a chickadee, a one-legged chickadee, that would come, one year would come and come to her window almost every day.
On the bird.
On the what? On the bird feeder, yes. And didn't it come back 2 years in a row?
Yeah.
2 years in a row, this little one-legged chickadee. So Kevin Lasky is, he works here. Well,
He's employed here.
he's employed here. Kevin builds all the benches, does all of our paintings, did all the MASH paintings, did all the Joe Power paintings. Very artistic. And Kevin carved Angie a little one-legged chickadee. And yeah, I think that was a hit. And I got to mention Al. Al, during COVID, when nobody could communicate with anybody in person, Al went out and stood in the back of Angie's house, outside her window, and he piped some tunes for her. So these guys are awesome. Al's a retired Strathcona, 22 years Canadian Army. Got blown up in Afghanistan in his last tour. That's where that big shell came from. That was actually the first one they fired. In case you're wondering why I have a 105 millimeter armor-piercing round behind me. So happens when you hang out with these guys. And I'm anxious to hear from Andrew. Andrew is a forward observer and just recovering from a brain aneurysm this summer. So he's doing extremely well. We've had him up here a couple weeks ago and get him back. He works here when he's back to good health. And Sid, you heard from Sid. Sid's 32 years Canadian Army engineer. And Sid works here. He runs our CNC up in Fredericton. We have a big shout out to Chris too, because Chris Davenport, we employ. I think he works more for us than he does for RPC, but he's responsible for a lot of the stuff that we do. And Paul up in Ontario, Paul's the genius behind a lot of the stuff that we come up with. We're working on something now, another piece of the dovetail puzzle that's, oh my goodness, it makes it so much easier to set stuff up. Watch for that. Ready, Frick?
Yep. Let's go.
Do three dead cats, and then we're going to give away a dovetail saw.
All right. 3 names. Let's go. All right. 3 dead cat winners. Chances of winning tonight are 1 in 195. Sue B.
Sue got another dead cat.
She. What's that? Her
You
third?
gotta be kidding me.
It's like her third.
She'll need a new closet.
She actually said it's going to be pretty cold tomorrow, and she's going to have to wear one.
Oh yeah, pretty cold
40,
and
43,
pretty
Good
43.
thing
She
she's
said.
got 6
What?
to choose from.
So it's going to be 43 tomorrow.
for a high.
Yeah, that's Fahrenheit, of course.
43 degrees Fahrenheit down in Orlando. Boy, wouldn't that be nice to have 43 degrees?
All right, number 2 is going to
Stay
Richard
warm, Sue.
Anderson in
Who?
Richard Anderson in Waterbury, Connecticut.
Hey Richard, you'll need it.
And the last one's going to Lane Carter in Arkansas.
Lane in Arkansas, soon he'll need it.
All right.
So who's the big winner of the dovetail saw?
The big winner of the dovetail saw is.
Drum roll.
Come on. Barry O'Mahony in Oregon.
Hey, Barry. I lived in Oregon back in 1981,
He's in
82.
Bend, Oregon.
Oh, in Bend? I didn't live there, but I spent about 3 weeks there. Loved it. Looking at the Three Sisters. All right. Congratulations. Make sure you guys get a hold of Gina. Support at RobCosman.com. If you want a dead cat, she needs to know your size.
Oh, wait now. Richard wants us to redraw his because he won one last time, apparently.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Richard. Spread the love, brother.
And Sugi.
All right.
And
so,
Sue does too?
all right. So we're drawing 2 more dead cats.
Everyone in the United States and Canada is going to have a dead cat. Let's send some overseas.
All right. First one's going to Danny Jacobson. Doesn't say where, but he's in the States.
Hey, Danny.
Somewhere in the-
Congratulations.
somewhere in the
And
States.
thank you to Sue or whoever it was that.
And the second one's going to Bill Pappas in Florida.
Bill, it's going to be cold tomorrow. Congratulations. Contact Gina, Gina. Well, you
Support
can
it.
get her that way, or you can get her at support at RobCosman.com. Tell her your size. Make sure you give her your address, and we will get it posted to you. I'm going to be in Orlando teaching hands-on half-blind dovetail workshop. The last Contact the Woodcraft store in Orlando, the last week of January, and also a through dovetail class. And we're going to start doing some local stuff. If you're anywhere near New Brunswick, we're going to start doing Saturday workshops here. We're going to provide the tools. You just have to show up, pay the little fee, take home a project. We thought, well, we're not utilizing this classroom very much, and I want to get more people introduced to this. It's a wonderful craft. See you in 2 weeks. And thank you.